Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bit like going from chocolates to boiled lollies to get the chief coach and then the finance director following hot on his heels, but I'll try and do it justice. I'd like to just take as read the finance director's report that you will have seen in the 2014 annual report, and tonight just talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the year from an operating point of view, and also a bit about how we see our financial position going forward. And the first thing I'd like to do is draw your attention to the slide that I hope you'll in a moment see on the screen, which summarises the key features of our result for the 2014 year. The headline result is a profit of $721,000, which, given some of the challenges we faced during 2014, is a terrific result. Yes, it includes donations, as is required under the accounting standard, but it also includes net legal and other expenses relating to the ASADA investigation of about $1.1 million. The really important thing to note from that slide is the terrific ability of this club to be able to generate cash from its operations. If you add back depreciation and amortisation, which don't involve paying out cash, and if you remove the donations and the ASADA costs, you get to what you might call the normalised cash from trading. It's not an accounting trick, it's the real cash that we generate from our operations. And you can see there, it amounts to $3.126 million. This is incredibly important because it gets to the question of why we are still confident of being able to repay our borrowings, which currently amount to $5 million in a reasonable time frame. Now, not all of the cash you see there is available to repay borrowings. The final instalment of the AFL fine will not be paid until December next year. And of course, we always have an ongoing level of capital expenditure which we need to fund. However, even allowing for items such as those, we are still in a very strong position and would expect to be able to repay our borrowings in a very reasonable time frame. So, we've had a good result with strong cash flows. How has that come about? Well, you'd have to admit that there have been a few challenges during the 2014 year, even over and above the direct costs that have come out of the ASADA investigation. For example, we've had the cost of running two centres, the True Value Solar Centre and Windy Hill. The result of that is that our site expenses increased by $1.5 million on the previous year, a large part of which was additional depreciation. We had additional unbudgeted taxes on our gaming venues as a result of a change of legislation, and that amounted to an extra cost of $240,000. And then, of course, there were the constant demands and distractions on all of our staff as a result of the ASADA investigation. I'm not sure how you would ever put a dollar figure on that, but it would be very substantial. On the other hand, there were some outstanding positives. Our member numbers are up, as Paul has said, from 56,400 to 60,700. Our sponsors, including the new major sponsor in Fujitsu General, remain hugely supportive, increasing their overall net investment by about $700,000. Donors, including members, continue to be very strong. And perhaps most importantly, our people, under Xavier Campbell's leadership, continue to do an outstanding job in every part of our business. Marketing, memberships, merchandise, venues, administration, they're all outstanding, and their commitment is shown not just by our result, but by the amazing, to me anyway, amazing fact that despite all the ongoing distractions, we had the lowest rate of staff turnover for 7 years. One expense area that's not shown on that slide is football expenses. Hef will talk in a moment about football, but the football department, I think, did a terrific job this year at slowing down the rate of increase in expenses. Year on year they increased marginally from $20.8 to $21.2 million, but virtually all of that increase was covered by the increase in our annual distribution from the AFL. We'll continue to work to get the balance right, to spend enough to give our players every chance to have success, but importantly to control our spend below the new AFL soft cap on football department expenses. Just two further points I'd like to make. First of all, I referred to donations, and Paul mentioned during his speech that 2015 will be the last year for the opt-out approach to donations. It just strikes me that I've had quite a few people say to me, these donations, obviously all we're being asked to do is tip money into the club so that we can pay for all the AFL fines and legal costs. Two figures on the next slide are particularly relevant to that. The first is the donations we received during the year amounted to $2.06 million. The second is that the additional spend on capital additions, mostly completion of the True Value Solar Centre during the year, was $2.48 million. It was only the generosity of our members and supporters that allowed us to complete the True Value Solar Centre without increasing our debt beyond the $5 million that we had outstanding at the beginning of the year. So thank you for that. And the last point that I would make is in relation to the outlook. In 2015 there'll be a few more headwinds. Hopefully the ASADA investigation will be behind us, but it would be foolish to expect that we won't have some more costs associated with that. On top of that, we are seeing increases in various AFL-related charges. So, for example, the equalisation levy and the increase which we need to find in our player payments will amount to additional costs of about $500,000. So, to begin dealing with these increases and particularly to allow us to start reducing our debt, we're going to be working harder than ever in all areas of our business. On the one hand, we'll be doing our utmost to control the cost base. On the other hand, we're going to be driving all of our commercial ventures harder to try to produce more revenue. Fundamentally, though, the ongoing support we receive from our members, sponsors, donors, and all our other stakeholders will continue to be essential. We will never take it for granted, and everybody in the organisation will be doing his or her utmost to make sure that that support is repaid.